Legislative District 4. This is Sandra Christensen, and this is the Voice of the People live stream. I have an amazing guest today. All of my guests are amazing, but this one in particular is, he holds a special place in my heart because we've been door knocking together in the heat, sweating, trying to go through people's sprinklers at times, but I have Matt Evans. Matt Evans is a wonderful individual. He's running for Phoenix City Council, and I want to welcome him as my very special guest today. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you for having me. What an awesome, warm welcome. I really appreciate that. And yeah, it's a special bond we've had forming it, knocking on doors in the 110-degree heat.
Yes,
and just
it's not for the faint of heart, is it?
Oh, it definitely is not for the faint of heart. If you're not willing to grind at 115 degrees, I would not go out and collect signatures. But
speaking of signatures, you just turned your signatures in yesterday, right?
Yes, I did.
How many did you get?
So my total was a little under 350. So in the city of Phoenix, we don't have primaries. The way that it works is provided we get enough signatures, our name goes straight to the general election ballot.
Great.
We need 200 signatures from registered voters in our district. And I'm excited to say that not only did I turn my signatures in, but all 4 members at Take Back Phoenix turned their signatures in. So there will be 4 candidates on the ballot this time.
Tell us about Take Back Phoenix.
Yeah, so Take Back Phoenix. So I ran for mayor of Phoenix in 2024 against the corrupt, evil Kate Gallego in the city of Phoenix, and tried real hard. But I kind of stepped in last minute. No name recognition, but I ended up finishing with 210,000 votes.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, I thought it was. And, but the reality was it kind of went along party registration lines.
Yes.
The Democrats in Phoenix out-register Republicans by a good 80,000. And then there's this mystery box of about 330,000. But what I learned through my campaign for mayor is that, about 65% of those were Democrats. So when I looked at 2028, because, my mission has always been to always take back Phoenix from these corrupt politicians, I looked at it, if I want to run for mayor, I'm going to have to flip 100,000 voter registrations. And that's going to be really difficult, right? So then I thought about it and I said, wait a second, we have 8 city council seats in the city of Phoenix. 4 of those are up for election in 2026, and there's actually really low voter turnout for each of those 4 districts. So I started Take Back Phoenix. So what is Take Back Phoenix? It's 4 Republicans running for each of those city council districts, so we can take the current 7-2 Democrat majority, flip it into a 5-4 Republican majority, and be the first large city in the United States to go red.
I love it. Love it, love it. And as you know, Arizona is, they're calling our district here a purple district, but I believe it is a true red state. But one thing that we have to do is we have to make sure that our electorate are getting out to vote, because we do have a slight majority overall, not necessarily in the city of Phoenix, but registered Republicans overall. But a lot of people, especially in a non-presidential election, don't want to get out and vote. Are you finding that when you go to the doors? What kind of conversations are you having along the lines of, are you going to vote or not?
I really haven't been doing too much assessments of if people are going to vote. I am, to be honest, knocking on people that have historically been known to vote, because those are the people I want to have conversations with first. But to your point, voter registration in the state of Arizona, I think Republicans out-registered Democrats by about 300,000. So it does come down to voter turnout. I have seen a little bit less enthusiasm, or what and I know it's sort of anecdotal, but as I go to LD meetings or events and speak, there's a significant noticeable drop off from the number of people that are showing up to these events and that were there in 2024. So, and I think independents now have overtaken both Republicans and Democrats, where they have roughly 33% of the voter registration. So I think that's a strong demographic to go over. But yeah, I do think it's going to be, just, from talking to people on doors, it's going to be a lower voter turnout in 2024. I'm hoping that this primary will have a high voter turnout.
I'm hoping so too.
Yeah, and so we'll see how that goes. But these are why we have to come on these podcasts, and we have to go out and let people know how important it is to turn out to vote, because we do have the numbers. And if you don't want Katie Hobbs to continue to ruin the state of Arizona and the rest of these Democrats, then all you have to do is go out and vote.
Well, as you know, because you and I have had some conversations, I am currently an elected official on the Paradise Valley Unified School District Governing Board, and that's a nonpartisan role. I am elected until the end of this year, 2026, but I am running for District 4 State House of Representatives, and one of the main reasons is because I want to make schools centers of academic excellence. More than half our state budget goes to education. And I'm the only District 4 House candidate that has actually been on all sides. I'm a mom, so I had to deal with COVID and some of the shenanigans that happened in our public schools as a mother. And then I got elected to a governing board. I was also working for the Arizona Department of Education. So I'm really strong on education, but I also have a business background. And so I want to know from you what your background is, because you and I have talked about this. It's important to have a well-rounded background when, especially in areas that we're representing, which can be a little more blue or purple, right? Because you have to have a wider, cast your net a bit wider and be able to reach the moderates and other people. What would you say?
And so my background is I have no political experience. I'm actually a computer systems engineer by trade, and I'm also a part-time rideshare driver, mainly Uber. And that was actually what sort of inspired my run for city council 4 or 5 years ago, when I would drive around the South and West Valley and see how bad the homelessness crisis was. To be honest, I didn't even know what a city council was at the time. I was just like, who is in charge of this place and what are they doing? And they were really receptive at first, but then as I continue to follow up and you see less action, next thing you know, you're sort of a detractor and you can't hear from them anymore. And so when I talk about how I'm a computer systems engineer, one of the things that excites me is if I actually get elected to the city council, I can actually make real tangible changes that you wouldn't see if someone else were to get elected. And what I mean about that specifically is I want to bring a data lake to the city of Phoenix. So I want to change the mentality where we start making decisions from data. One thing that is absent in the city of Phoenix is real-time data collection.
Yep.
They publish metrics, but it's only on a monthly basis, and there's very little metadata attached to these. So there's not much information that you can extrapolate from them. And I think just as the statement I said, or the story about how I was driving Uber and I saw how bad it was, and just seeing that every day just really, inspired me to want to do something. I think if we can actually collect data and put that into dashboards that even a 5th grader could understand, or anybody, they'll see what I saw driving Uber every day, and they'll be just inspired and just as encouraged to step up and do something. And so I think we really have to change, our philosophy and how we make decisions in the city of Phoenix. And I have that technical background to actually make that happen, in a team of volunteers that would come on and happily participate. So I could literally save the city millions of dollars in doing this as well.
I love that. You and I align on so many levels. So I'm not sure if we ever had this conversation, but I moved here in Arizona in 1994 to be an IT project manager for Honeywell. Oh. So I have a tech background as well from a million years ago. Back in the day, it was COBOL programming, and then we kind of started getting into object-oriented programming, and now I'm trying to get well-versed in AI. I'm not in tech anymore, but once you're a techie nerd, you kind of always have that bit of a bug, right? Yep. But what the other thing that we have in common is that we've seen what's been happening on our streets in Phoenix. So I mentioned that I worked for the Arizona Department of Education in 2023, and I had to commute to work every day, and I would see those encampments, and they were getting worse and worse. And it's leadership. And it's the ability, because it's not humane. It's not humane for anybody. I was having to walk through some of those encampments to go get a sandwich at lunchtime sometimes. And I didn't
worry about your safety, right?
Yes, I did worry about that. And so the leadership there always recommended that I had a buddy, but I'm pretty independent, and a lot of times I would walk out by myself. So it's very important. So what have you noticed being an Uber driver and seeing about the encampments? They kind of waver, and during an election year, sometimes they get cleaned up a little bit. But what are you seeing now?
What I've seen is the situation continues to get worse. So in the city of Phoenix, they did have this huge encampment called the Zone in downtown Phoenix, and there was a lot of litigation that went through. They ultimately ended up breaking that up through a court order. And so it kind of spread out into the city of Phoenix. Now we see, I was actually literally at the Zone yesterday as I passed through there, dropping off my signatures in downtown Phoenix. Yes. And there's construction going on right now. And behind that, the Zone is proliferating again. It's coming back. And so what I've seen is that the problem just continues to get worse. And that's, one of the biggest reasons I'm running is, and I was an advocate for this when I ran for mayor in 2024, which is, we need mandated treatment. And I think that the Spencer Pratt
when you say that, you're talking about like drug, alcohol.
Yeah, because a lot of these, a lot of these people choose the lifestyle. They choose to be addicted to drugs. And listen, I'm someone that's 12 years sober from opiates myself on February 21st. So I know what it's like to be lost. And sometimes you need someone to pull you out. And I would, say if we look at the story with Tyler Chase, the Nickelodeon star, it was real all over social media about 6-7 months ago. He was this Nickelodeon star. Someone found him on the streets, I think, of Riverside, California. Just looked, so addicted to drugs. And a lot of celebrities came and they tried to get him to motels, buy him clothes, get him into treatment. He was there for 72 hours and he left. Now his parents are, saying the same thing I am, that's always going to be his future, him living on the streets, addicted to drugs, unless policy allows us to take him off the streets and give him a second chance at life. And I argue that that's more compassionate because the alternative is that, he might overdose on the streets one day and then his parents won't have a son anymore. And I don't want that.
Yeah, and it has to be his choice because you can provide money, you can provide funding, and all of the programs that are available to Arizonans. But if it's not either encouraged by mandates or they're willing to get treatment on their own, they're never going to get better. And the situation is not going to get better either.
Yeah, a lot of these people, they don't have hope. And, listen, I want to give them the help that they desperately need. But at the same time, when I see our communities trending where there is public urination and defecation in our streets, or you're worried about stepping on needles, stepping outside your car at the grocery store, or, in my case, taking my kids to the grocery store and seeing someone passed out at a bus stop or pushing a shopping cart around half naked, it's a two-way street.
Yes.
You're not a bad person for wanting to live in a safe and clean neighborhood. And in our city council, there's not a single advocate for the working class. And that's what I aim to be. We need, it's a difficult problem to solve. It's balancing between compassion and mandated treatment. But like I said, we need both approaches. There is tough love because as we see, if we don't, then they're just going to continue the path that they always have.
Right, because just allowing people to make bad choices and perpetuate and throwing money at it is not compassionate. So I agree with you 100%. So you talked about balance and things like that. I want to know from a personal perspective, how are you balancing all this? Because you and I have gone out, we're door knocking nearly every day in the heat. We both have families. How are you managing this and balancing, collecting signatures, and how is your family?
Well, on the outside, I look like this.
Yes.
On the inside, I look like this.
Yeah.
So the reality is, and a lot of people don't know this, but prior to running for mayor, I ran for city council 4 years ago. That was my first inspiration. So I've literally been on like a 4-year, 5-year campaign.
Yes.
And at first, you're just so inspired because you know what you're fighting for, you know what you believe in, and you're willing to make these sacrifices, whether it's missing a soccer practice, or my son's football practice, or not being able to go out to dinner like we normally do with a family. But after you've been doing it for 4 or 5 years, you really start to see the sacrifice that you're making. My son was 4 years old at the time. Now he's 9 years old. And,
wow.
and you start to really realize what you're missing out on. And so I wouldn't be here today without the support of my family, my fiance, my kids. She is my absolute rock.
I love it.
She holds the fort down behind every great man as a better woman, right? And that is the case. My parents, my family, and my faith in Jesus Christ, and my belief that, the people deserve the power in the city of Phoenix. Those keep me running and convicted, but I am running on fumes, so I am anxiously waiting to actually get this victory, this election, and stop the campaigning and go and actually do the job.
Yeah, no, I can relate to all of that. And I'm glad you brought up faith. I think I have my little pin somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
I armor up every time I go out there because sometimes I am walking and knocking doors by myself. I'll have a driver per se, but you don't know what you're going to get. It's very unscripted when you're outdoors, and it is one of my favorite campaign activities. I think it's actually my favorite because it's unscripted and because I can, talk to them and speak to their heart and really listen to what people are going through. But you brought up faith, and so I'm going to talk about that a little bit. I was told when I ran for school board, so this is an encouragement for you, that I had no chance because nobody knew who I was. I was even new to the Republican Party because I was an independent most of my adult life with a conservative heart. But they told me, oh, you can't win, maybe wait 2 years. And I'm like, no, this is my time. I'm going to do it. And it's so interesting because I have a core group of, which I call my prayer team, and my prayer warriors know who they are. But I believe they prayed me into the role of school board. And so between the churches and the moms in prayer, prayer warriors, they're the reason I'm doing this and that I continue to fight, because it's hard. It's hard when you're a lone voice. I'm the only Christian conservative on the Paradise Valley School Board, and I get a lot of flack, but one thing I've learned is to treat people with respect regardless of their political leanings or views, and they know that I'm going to hold strong to my beliefs, but they also know that I'm going to respect them as a person. So I think that's really important. Are you seeing that at the doors? Because not everybody is, really, even the conservatives that were knocking, they're not excited about elections this year and about the direction of our country. So what are you hearing at the doors?
As it relates to faith, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, disclaimer, I knock on a lot of conservative doors, and I think a lot of those people have faith and have religion, and I try not to, it doesn't come up a lot, because a lot of people are more focused on the policy and what I'm going to change. But when I do have the conversations, I was at someone's neighbor, Diane, shout out, and she had this beautiful cross in her desert, and I think people do. They want to get behind someone that is a man or a woman of faith. We need some faith returned to our
godly women and men.
And your story is so inspiring. I just want to say thank you for not giving up. And I also believe in the power of prayer. Just to go back a step, when we were talking about how do I get through this campaign and what I'm feeling, there's not a day go by 10 times a day for the last 4 years where I pray to God to give me the strength and the courage to continue. And I wouldn't be here today without my faith. All glory just goes to God.
Yes,
so.
and one of the things that I've been praying for when my prayer team asked me, what do you want us to pray for? I always pray God's will, because I feel he's preparing me for something really big. And in my opinion, it's this role, but if not, it's going to be something bigger and better. So I think that when you just surrender and you have a servant heart, God is going to use you, even if you're not perfect. I don't know everything about being in the legislature, but I'm learning a lot. I'm having conversations with people every day, and he equips you. Wouldn't you agree that you get equipped when you're willing and ready and you come like this?
Amen. I mean, I remember when I first ran for mayor, I was invited to these events, and I'm no public speaker. I'm actually very nervous. I was sitting on pins and needles, like sweating, my hands, and just nervous in my head. And all I'm just saying is, please God, just give me the strength and courage. And they get on the microphone, they call my name up, and I'm just like, stand up, move your right foot, move your left foot. And the next thing you know, you're on stage and you're speaking. And so, it's just, I believe that, I was put in this position as part of God's plan, or else I wouldn't be here. And so whenever I have doubt, whenever I'm wondering, is this the right path? I know that this is my purpose, and that you just have to keep the faith.
Yeah, we're the Davids and the Esther, modern day Davids and the modern day Esthers.
And we know how that story ended, right?
Yes,
so,
we do.
Amen.
And so, I'm going to pivot a little bit. So I really want to know about conversations at the door that you're having, because as I mentioned, I think you and I are some of the most, aggressive. No, that's not the right word. Most. What's the word? We knock a lot of doors.
We're out there. You're right.
We're out there, and I haven't seen.
I think
a
we're
lot
giving
of
turning
other
point
people.
competition, right? I think we might be the top door knockers this campaign so far, and that's one of the biggest reasons. Obviously, you're a champion for the school board, and I have 3 kids in that same district, so it's really important to me. And I remember when you came and spoke at my LD, and your words resonated with me. But having you come out and knock on doors with me, I mean, I got your back 110%. Anybody that's willing to put in the work and show me how much they care and that they're going to knock on voters' doors, I think it's just awesome. And one of the biggest questions I ask people when I'm knocking on doors is, because I'm running for city council, why does Phoenix suck? Or what's your beef with Phoenix? If I were actually to get elected, if we pull off the majority, what would you like to see change in the city of Phoenix? And the first thing you hear is, well, I don't know. That's a really great question.
Yeah.
But that's a good opportunity for me to come in and say, well, let me educate you on what, local politics, why it matters, what's important about. And then it kind of splinters based on, what area you live in. Homelessness is still always a top issue with people just because it's all over the valley. I'm in District 2 in North Phoenix, so there are some more affluent areas, and they're really concerned about water and energy and the proliferation of data centers coming. And so that's why it's awesome to knock on people's doors, because you can hear what these topics are in the media and what people are pushing, and even candidates, but you can really find out what people really care about, the real voters that actually matter when you knock on their doors.
And it's regional too, because I'm in District 4, which encompasses the North Phoenix, but just the Desert Ridge area between Desert Ridge Marketplace and Pinnacle High School. Most of Scottsdale, that is south of the 101. It encompasses Paradise Valley, Arcadia, and the Biltmore area. And depending on what area I knock in, there's different concerns. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, and that's why you have to. Yeah, that's what I understand. And so now it's like, because my kind of initial inspiration started off with the homelessness crisis, right?
Yes.
But then as I really started to do my research and pay attention, I realized the city of Phoenix is mismanaging a lot more than that. And there's really no better evidence or proof that you can get from knocking on doors and actually hearing from people. Like, you live in this community. For instance, I'll bring up one thing that just came to my mind.
Yeah.
In North Phoenix, around my neighborhood, the city of Phoenix is building a water reclamation plant. So
Okay.
people might know this as toilet to
Toilet to
tap.
tap.
Right. One of the questions in that surrounding area that I asked every neighbor was, are you even aware of this? And I didn't find a single yes. Regardless of after they found out about how they felt, nobody was aware of it. So that was really striking to me, is that there's still this huge gap where we're not delivering the issues that impact the residents that live there. Whether the medium is social media or the news, we're not doing a good enough job of the residents. And
Yes.
what I tell them is, and I think this will happen with the toilet to tap situation, is when they finally open that in 2028, there's going to be a news story that comes out on the media, and then everybody in that neighborhood is going to be like, what? I didn't know about this. And you're going to see it all over the news. And so
Transparency is so important in these issues. As a governing board member on a school board, there's something called a consent agenda. And a lot of people don't understand what that is. A consent agenda is different from the main agenda that everybody could see. I mean, it is in there, so it's not really hidden. But once my agenda is approved by the governing board, there's a whole bunch of things on that hidden consent agenda that just automatically gets approved, millions of dollars. So what I do as a board member, and this might be, something that you could look into, I pull things out that I feel the public really needs to know, like whether it be an expenditure, out-of-state teacher travel while we have declining revenues, things of that nature, and we have a discussion. And it 100% gets approved because I tend to vote no on those things, but I get outvoted. But the important thing is not the 1-4 vote, but it's transparency and allowing the people to understand what we're voting on and how we're spending their money, because we live in a constitutional republic, and that means the people, the voters, the constituents are in charge, not the electeds. We're supposed to represent them.
Amen.
How do you feel
We the
about
peop-
that?
I love that, and that's transparency is one of my main priorities. So I actually was talking about this yesterday on a reel I made, but I would like to create something when I'm elected to the city council called the Take Back Phoenix Integrity Task Force.
Love it.
So some of us are familiar with Doge when it came
Yes.
out, and you can actually go to your phone right now. It's still up there. There's a doge.gov website. And I would love that, because every day they would publish their findings of what their task force would find when it was coming to government efficiency. I want to bring that to the city of Phoenix. I want a phoenix.gov, and I want to have a task force which is paid employees and also a series of volunteers, where when you show up 9 to 5 every day, your sole job is to find corruption in the city of Phoenix,
Love it.
weed it out, and report it to the public.
I love that.
So-
I love that. Yeah. So a lot of the candidates that are running for governor and Congress have talked a lot about waste, fraud, and abuse, since you did bring up Doge. And I will argue that being one school board member in one school district in one state, I'm not going to say fraud because I haven't seen anything that I can prove, but there definitely is some waste and opportunity to bring it back. For instance, in that consent agenda, if it's under like a $3 million price tag, we don't have to get multiple bids. And anybody knows that the best pricing and getting the best contractors, you need to get some bids there, right? So the way it works in our school district is that we have a consortium. It's called 1GPA, which is a consortium of approved vendors. And if they're on that list, then we don't necessarily have to go out for bids if it's under $3 million. A neighboring district, they have a ceiling of $100,000. It is local control. We're all different school districts, and we can make those decisions. But to me, that is
I remember this
taxpayer
at a school
waste.
board meeting you were at, and it's one of the first things that won me over with you, which was that they were talking about, I forget which school, and I won't get into the details of the
Yeah.
company, but
Is it
they
a
needed
kitchen remodel?
a roofing, I think a roofing contract.
Yes.
And it was like $3 million or something like that. And then 20 minutes later, they talk about a roofing contract for another school. And it was another $2 or $3 million. And it was the same company. And immediately I was like, wait a second, that's pretty interesting. Is there only one roofing company in the state of Arizona? And I didn't think anyone was going to bring it up, but you brought it up.
Yes.
And I was like, that is what we need. People like that are going to ask the common sense questions. You know, I feel like too often, and again, I'm taking a shot at the progressives or the Democrats, they're on this spending spree, and it's only $2 million, it's only $3 million, but no, it's not. That's taxpayer money.
Yes.
And when you do $2 million here, 100,000 here, it adds up.
Quickly.
And so we need fiscal conservatives that are going to push back. And I remember when you said that, I was like, I like her. You know?
Yeah. So, but it's been such an interesting ride to be like very apolitical, and it sounds like you and I again have similar path. Very apolitical. I was a mom. I was, you know, I had an IT background, but then I also had some veterinary experience. I worked in the veterinary industry as well. But my son at an early age was getting bullied in the schools. So even though I loved my job, I loved working outside the home, I ended up quitting and I was blessed enough because my husband had a good job at the time, and I was able to work into the school. So I'm going to pivot to some school conversations.
Sure.
So when I was in the school district, when I quit my job, I started volunteering because I can't sit still. I'm a hard worker, and like, what am I going to do now? Sip margaritas by the pool? No, that's not my style.
Idle hands are the devil's playground, right?
Exactly. And so I started volunteering in the schools, and one of the things when you're a volunteer, you kind of start becoming kind of behind the scenes, and you pick up things that aren't necessarily something that a school official will say in a parent-teacher conference. Let's just put it that way. So some of the things that I heard were a certain individuals saying presidents were bad up until Abraham Lincoln because they owned slaves. And so this was being told to my fourth grader. And so I had to go back and reteach history lessons. Yes, slavery is bad, but you know, this is what happened. We fought the Civil War, and a lot of those individuals fought to free them. And many of the slaves were treated well because they brought them in as family members, and then they gave them their freedom afterwards. But that conversation wasn't happening. And so I don't know, your kids, I think you said, are in public schools.
Yep.
And so have you, as a parent, ever come across anything that was questionable, whether it be the new math or certain ways of educating our youth?
I have. So, you know, my oldest, she was in private Christian school until 5th grade. And, you know, due to some personal reasons, we had to take her out of the private school and put her into the public school system. All three of my children are now in the Paradise Valley School District. I was very worried, you know, because there is a lot of indoctrination going on in our schools, and I feel like the focus has shifted away towards academics. One of them in particular, and I forget the name of the movie, but it was about African-American women in the space force in the 60s, and I think it was a pretty popular movie that came out. And I don't have any beef with that, you know, or talking about that issue, but they were, you know, trying to send home a permission slip to have it in my daughter's PE class, and then it became the math class, and then it became the social studies class, and then after like 3 different classes, I'm like, wait a second. I called the principal. I'm like, are you guys like just not going to give up until you feed this video to all of our children? Like, this is the 3rd permission slip I've had. Like, what does this have to do with PE? What does this have to do with math? And he didn't know about it. And he's like, and then the other thing that frustrated me about it is, so I chose no. I said, you know what? Because I didn't, this is really during the heat of 2024, and I didn't trust the public school system, and I didn't trust their intent on why they were showing that. So I said no. And the alternative, she would have to submit a written assignment. But the written assignment was just reading a book about the same material. So I was like, what alternative is this? And so I called the principal, and he was on my side. He's like, I didn't know about this. Like, I agree. I don't know why teachers are colluding. And the thing that I left out is my daughter was in elementary school, and then she went to middle school, and they both tried it, the middle school and the elementary school. And that's when I was like, this is enough. Yeah. And he was on my side. He called the teachers. He's like, we pulled that. That's not an appropriate alternative assignment. And so, you know, that was just a little example, but it's a real example that happens. And if I didn't catch that, you know, I wonder how much else goes on in schools.
Well, and in Arizona, we have one of the strongest parental bills of rights in the nation. And so parents are the ones that have the right to direct the education, upbringing, health, mental health of their own children. But a lot of times we've just assumed that things are going to be kosher and that things are going to be fine. But if we're not paying attention as parents, then things are happening. But I will say that Republicans do get a bad rap on school boards because we do point out fiscal responsibility and things that maybe teaching lessons that we don't feel are appropriate. But I'm going to give a shout out to my school district because there are some great things happening in our schools as well. So did you know that we are now trying to ensure that our kids are not just college ready, but career ready? So Paradise Valley Schools is really partnering with West MEC to look at the trades. And so I'm really excited about that as a conservative and just as a mom and somebody wanting our schools to be better. So now our public schools, and not just our district, but a lot of them, we're looking at the trades. So not just West MEC, but in our, like Paradise Valley High School, we have the CREST program, and they have 3D printers there, and they're teaching kids this really great things. Also, welding and things like that. So did you know about that?
I did not know about that until I participated in some of your events this claim, and I heard you talk about it. So you educated me on that. But and I think that's a good thing that I want to clarify, right? Is I'm a big proponent of school choice and parental choice, and I support the ESAs. But at the same time, I'm not here just to bash on the public education system, just to bash on it. I'm calling out the realities and the facts of the indoctrination. But there are good things that can go on in our school systems, and so we just need people like you that are in the positions to make sure that that's the focus. Right. And we need to get back to education. And like I said, I love the vocational programs like you were talking about, because not everybody has a future in college, and that doesn't mean that not everybody should have a future in college. And especially with the AI coming around, right? We need vocational skills. And so I'm really excited about what you're telling me about the PD school board.
I'm excited too. It is a great school district, but we have to support our public schools, because one size does not fit all in education. I went to public school, so did my husband, and my son graduated from Horizon High School. So I do support the public school, but that doesn't mean that I'm against choice, because again, one size doesn't fit all, and it's not the right fit for everyone.
You're right. And one of my biggest things, because my daughter was in private school, so I've had the benefit of seeing what it's like in private education and then in public schools. I will admit that I have been fortunate in the public schools my kids are in, have been really well. But there was also this trade-off where when my daughter left private school and went to the public school system, she was in honors classes immediately. Like she was killing her homework. She was so far ahead of it. And so I would like to see that
setting the bar higher.
Academics balanced, where, and I'm not the only one who has said it. There's a lot of people you can go look at their stories where they transferred from private education to public education, and they were way ahead of the game. And so that's a problem to me.
Right. And that's one of the things that I always say on the dais is we have to set the bar high for all our kids. It doesn't matter their socioeconomic background, their ethnicity, or, whatever category they think they're in. We have to set the bar high for everybody, because every child deserves a good education and to be safe when they're at school. Those two things are non-negotiable when us as parents send our kids to school. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I would agree. And correct me if I'm wrong, but as I understand it too, the public education system, when it comes to the cost per pupil, is almost double what it is for this private school voucher program in Arizona. So you're getting less to do more, and so make that make sense.
It's not defunding the public.
Yeah, it's not just funding. It's how we run these school systems, and that's why we need more people like you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, as we wrap up today, I want to throw it back at you to tell us about any websites that you have going on. Tell us about your next step now that you turned in your signatures and you're going to be on the ballot. Tell us more about your race and what you want people to know.
Yeah, I'm just super excited. So again, Take Back Phoenix. I'm running for City Council District 2, but it's not just me. If I get on the City Council and there's a 7-2 Democrat majority, I'm going to be fighting them. What's special about Take Back Phoenix is that we can literally take the majority back in our city. Overnight, we can make sweeping changes. If you look at the top 50 cities in the United States, 42 have Democrat majorities. If you look at the top 10, 9, New York City, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, Chicago, the list goes on and on. I think it's time we show this country what it looks like when we have some common sense conservatives. And my pitch to anybody else out there that's an independent or Democrat is, although we are trying to take back the majority of these Democrats, we are not here to push a conservative agenda. We are here to take common sense. Yeah, our mission statement is make Phoenix a great place to live for everyone that lives in this city. And it's time to return the power to the citizens of this city. And you can go to takebackphoenix.com, which is our website. It has links to each of the individual candidates running on Take Back Phoenix. And if you love, make a contribution, it's going to go a
Yes.
long way, because we really believe that our message wins. It's just a matter of getting our message out there, and money helps us get our message out there.
I love that. Well, I want to thank you for coming on today. It was a great conversation, and I'm looking forward to knocking more doors with you.
Well, thank
in
you
the
so
heat.
Yeah, thank you so much. Let's go do it.
Yeah, let's
win.
do it. Let's win. Well, I just want to thank my guest today, Matt Evans, and he's running on a Take Back Phoenix slate. And so please visit their website at takebackphoenix, is it .com or .org? .com. And if you can spare a few dollars, please donate to their campaign. I'm also running in District 4, State House Representative, and my website is sandraforaz.com. A lot of us are self-funding, and it is expensive to run a campaign. We're not doing it for the money, but we have to get signs, we have to feed our volunteers and things like that. So if you can donate to your favorite candidates, please do so. So this is Sandra Christensen signing off. I am the voice of the people, and this is the Voice of the People live stream. Thank you for joining us today.